Are you struggling with chronic disease or even the risk factors for chronic disease like high blood pressure or high cholesterol or obesity? Then brace yourself for some tough news. There is no magic pill for chronic disease, but that doesn't mean that there isn't hope. So at the core of chronic disease are 8 key cellular processes that we call the hateful 8 or the grateful 8. Depends on you. These processes are critical for health, and if they're compromised, they create the perfect storm for chronic disease. Conversely, when they're optimized, they promote optimal health, longevity, and vitality. Hence the term grateful 8. And understanding these processes is absolutely essential in addressing chronic disease and their root causes. I'm going to briefly outline them today, and we're going to circle back over the next few weeks and revisit them in a bit more detail. First up, number 1 is glycation. Now, blood glucose, blood sugar, it's a double-edged sword. To me, it's very much like nuclear fuel. Really good on one side, but it can be really dangerous on the other. Every cell needs glucose, but too much becomes toxic. Here's an analogy. Imagine rubbing steel wool on the inside of your skin repeatedly. That's what excess glucose can do to the inside of arteries. So common causes of glycation are processed carbohydrate, high processed carbohydrate intake, fructose, and a sedentary lifestyle. Number 2 is oxidative stress. Think about oxidative stress as rusting. And it occurs when there's an excess of free radicals in our body cells. This can damage the cell, it can damage proteins and DNA, and it contributes to aging. But also a whole bunch of other things like diabetes, cancer, and neurodegenerative disease like Alzheimer's. We all rust. The question is how fast we rust. Now, a high intake of glucose and fructose, along with a lack of physical activity, are major contributors to oxidative stress. Number 3 is mitochondrial dysfunction. Now, South Africans will understand when I say this is the body's load shedding. Mitochondria are the power stations of every cell. When they malfunction, the body can't meet its energy requirements, and your lights go out. Pretty much like most days in South Africa over the last few years. Now, the culprits are fructose, omega-6 fatty acids, trans fats, a low micronutrient intake, and a lack of exercise. Next up, insulin resistance. Now, insulin resistance is a state in which your cells in your muscles, your fat, your liver don't respond well to insulin and can't easily take up glucose from your blood. As a result, your pancreas makes more insulin to help the process of getting glucose to enter your cells. At fault here, high fructose intake, consumption of branched chain amino acids from corn-fed animals, now we'll talk about this in a bit more detail, and insufficient physical activity. Next up, membrane instability. This one is important. Every cell in our body is made up of essential fatty acids. Ideally, each cell wall would have a 1-to-1 ratio of omega-3 and omega-6. Now, omega-3 is anti-inflammatory, omega-6 is pro-inflammatory. It gives the cell suppleness. But our current diet skews this ratio to about 1-to-60 in favor of the omega-6s, which makes the cell walls brittle and hard. Glucose can't get in and waste can't get out. And you can imagine that's a serious problem. Now, a lack of omega-3s in your diet is obviously the major contributor here. Next up is inflammation. Now, acute inflammation, a bee sting, an injury, an infection, that helps us heal. But chronic inflammation, that lingers and it damages healthy tissues and organs over time. Now, this is triggered by high carbohydrate diet, gluten, omega-6 fatty acids again, fructose, and a lack of dietary fiber. The next one is a bit tricky, but bear with me. It's called methylation. There are 7 billion chemical reactions in our body every second. Now, methylation is one of those reactions where a small part called a methyl group connects to DNA, to proteins, or other substances. Now, adding a methyl group can change how these substances work in our bodies. And this influences the risk of diseases like cancer significantly. Now, a lack of folic acid and B12 can disrupt methylation. The final one is called autophagy, or we sometimes call it Thursday. If you live in Joburg, Thursday is dustbin day. And now autophagy is exactly that. It's a natural self-preservation mechanism where the body removes damaged or dysfunctional bits of a cell and recycles other parts for repair of that cell. And this recycling is done by the bacteria in your gut, which again we're going to come back to over the coming weeks. Frequent eating and a lack of exercise hinders our natural autophagy process. So can you see that the problem here is that cellular processes cannot be targeted by medications? However, there are two drugs that can act at the cellular level, and those are exercise and nutrition, both forms of medicine. Chronic disease is not druggable, but it is foodable and movable. So we're going to jump into the details about these in some upcoming episodes. So if you like this, you like what you hear, please subscribe, give us a thumbs up. We would appreciate that very much. And we will see you all soon. Take care.